is someone that you've managed to you've cast your net and managed to get this fine gentleman on. So hi Ben, how are you?
I've wrangled you, Ben.
I'm good. Hello.
Just for the audience, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, what you do for a living, where you're from, how long you supported Norwich, and talk about what you do.
Sure. Well, I'll disappoint everybody because I'm Ben Stokes, but I'm not that one. I'm Benjamin T. Stokes, a graphic designer and Norwich City fan. Since I think, like a lot of people, my vintage, Italia '90 was when I got into football. So about 91, started following Norwich.
Oh wow, okay.
I'm probably of that age, that probably last generation where you just went and supported your local team before everyone started wearing Man United shirts, and then
not anymore.
Sorry?
Not anymore. They're not wearing Man U shirts anymore.
No, that was the first one I remember. My sort of generation. Now it's what is it, Into Miami or whatever? But yeah. So I think like 92, February 92 was my first ever game at Canaries.
Wow.
Okay.
So going back a bit now.
Yeah.
A lot of ups and downs in that time.
I'd say so. So I mean, I guess that leads us nicely into the first question, Jez, if you want to ask it.
Yes, of course, Morgan, I will. And the question is, Ben, tell us a little bit about your fan experience of Norwich. When and why did you start supporting the club? I think you probably already have a little.
Geography. I was like, what's the name of where I live? Where's the nearest team? Okay, that'll do.
Yeah.
My first game was February 92, Southampton at home. Robert Fleck, he was my first hero. And that was the season before they knocked down the old Barclay. So I got one game to stand on the old Barclay, which is I'm pretty pleased about.
Yeah.
And even though I could barely see anything, and I remember the game being incredibly foggy as well. You could barely see the goal at the river end. But I guess like a lot of people, like the minute you get in there, you're just hooked. The minute you sort of your first game, when you see the pitch for the first time and the sights and the sounds, and that's it. That was me hooked for life.
I mean, we talk about this quite a bit on the pod, but no one ever seems to mention the smell.
Yes.
Whenever you go up the steps, you always get a smell of the grass. And
absolutely.
For me, that smell just it reminds me of so many different things as well. Like, and I just love that when you go up the steps and to try and find a seat and you can smell the grass. It's just it's a real every time.
It's the grass on the pitch, Morgan, and not some sort of Amsterdam sort of going up the stairs.
I'm talking about the grass on the pitch. Yeah, it's a family pod.
But yeah, it's very evocative, particularly evening games. You do get that smell. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the floodlights and under the floodlights at evening games. Yeah, that
I think as well. Sorry, Morgan. I think as well is the podcast is called Beyond the Barclay, and we don't talk. We have talked about the Barclay, obviously, but we certainly haven't gone into the greater detail of the the structure of it. And as you alluded to, the Barclay that's there today was only built in what did you say 91, 92?
Yeah, summer 92, I think. Yeah.
So talk to us about your memories of the Barclay before that. Very limited, as you said, but perhaps you've got some sort of memories of it sort of before it was what it's become today.
I've been pestering my dad to go to a game for a while, and my mum was quite nervous about it because this was 92. This is a different time, really. Not that long since after Hillsborough and stuff, so football was still potentially quite dangerous. And I think I'd been allowed to go on the provision that my dad would get us seats in the south stand or the main stand, but my dad, being completely unprepared, hadn't got tickets beforehand, thought we could just rock up and they're all sold out, the seats. So he was like, okay, right, we better go in the terraces then.
Yeah.
And like I say, I was like 11 years old, so I could only barely see above the heads in front of me to see the pitch. And to be fair, it wasn't that raucous. It was only Norwich versus Southampton, but I'm glad I've got that memory anyway.
The greatest rivalries come out of the places you'd expect them the least. Isn't Crystal Palace and Brighton a thing? Isn't it?
Supposedly, yeah.
They hate each other.
Yeah, the most bizarre. I don't know. we had a Brighton fan on here not so long ago, and I think I'm not sure if he explained it. Do you remember, Jez? Because I can't.
I just think it's simply the what they call the A. Someone's going to correct me on my geography here, but the A2 derby. Is it the A2? No, it's not. Is it?
I don't know. It's definitely named after a road, isn't it? But I can't remember which one.
I think the A2 goes down to Dover. I'm not massive on the roads down that part of the country, but it's certainly, as you said, Ben, it's certainly a road in between Brighton and Croydon.
But less about them. I remember, I think for a sort of younger audience at home, UK football was banned in Europe for a while because of hooliganism, and I think it was a sort of a stark period of time for UK football. I remember my dad's not a massive Norwich fan or anything like that, but
no, mine neither.
He's just like, I really don't care for it, but he's like, he said back in the 80s, the guys from Deering, so that's where I'm from originally, he'd say, one of his mates would be like, let's go up to the Barclay and let's have a ruck at the football. My dad was like, why would I want to go to Norwich and fight with people? So very, very different days, very different times.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I didn't have the family connection. It's not like, my dad and my granddad and my great granddad. No, I'm the first one. The first one. My dad likes football, but he's never really supported a team. So
my mum and dad were season ticket holders for a number of years, but I wouldn't say that's not fair. I think both were very big football fans, but they weren't necessarily when me and my sister were growing up. And obviously, times are tough, aren't they? Sometimes we were living out sort of Cromer, Munsley, and Marsham way, and it was difficult to get to the games. But my sort of way of sort of falling into it, if you like, because I went with my middle school, Horsford. Shout out to the Horsford Massive. And then just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the club. There are certain games that I always remember watching or at least listening to Bolton in the League Cup, where I think Brian Gunn pulled out a couple of penalty saves.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah,
and I think. My plumber's just sent me a quote about an invoice. That's never good. I don't even want to open that. But yeah, so I think, that's how I fell in love with it. And you get your certain heroes, don't you? That you fall in love with as well. And that's happened all the way down the years, really. And I think it's only getting to the time now where I'm nearly 40, and I still look at those players as heroes, but probably not so much these days. And I think. Pukki and Buendia are probably the last two where I kind of look at them like that nowadays. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, like that season. I mean, we always talk about it, 2018, 2019. And that team of. I don't want to call them misfits. I think that's a really hard term, but you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I remember that season, and like Jez just said, you had your Pukki and Buendia, but also you had your support cast like Stoperman and Vrancic, who I was really behind as a player. Yeah. But yeah, Jez, like I think, I don't know, maybe it's a case of us kind of growing up and not finding that sort of affinity with particular players now. I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's always good to see an amazing bit of skill, like that goal that Saints scored against Borough. I was like, oh my God, how the hell did you score that? That's so cool. But yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe as you get older, things change.
I think I'll always admire a player that plays for Norwich and support them them as if I would anyone else. But I certainly wouldn't have a Ben Crescene poster up on my bedroom wall. I mean, my wife wouldn't be best. Well, I don't know. She might like Ben Crescene, but I don't think that we're not at the stage now in our. I'm not 40s. I'm still in my 30s. I'm clinging on, but some people might, but that's not for that's not what we do, is it?
No, absolutely. I'm all in on Mahovo now. He's my new favourite after 4 games or whatever.
Your chips are behind Mahovo.
It doesn't take much. But okay, yeah.
I don't know why, but right for me, he's just. I liked his first interview, and he just came across as a really level-headed, clever lad, and depending on whether he stays and how good he performs, he could potentially be captain material. And I keep saying this, and I always say this as well: die on that hill, and I'll die on that hill, the right hill.
And I hope he gets given the opportunity to stay, because it's not been a great start, but at the same time, Callum Doyle's start wasn't great for us.
True.
You just think sometimes these players that are from elite academies in the Premier League, they're not used to the general kind of pace, strength of our league, and it does take time for them to bed in, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've had this conversation so many times in the past. Like, how often do our fans kind of just leap on players when they're just coming in? And I we had a recent pod with Adrian Coote, former Parish, and he was talking about his experience when he's on the field, that you don't necessarily hear the crowd. You might hear, like, because you're concentrating so much on your task at hand. But equally at the same time, Jez mentioned on that same pod that do the sort of fans, does that have an effect on players who are trying to bed in and find their feet? It's certainly an interesting argument.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your career as a graphic designer, because this gives us, the listeners, context to where we go on this episode. So how did you fall into it?
Well, I fell into it. It was kind of always what I wanted to do, really. Plus, one of the only things I was actually any good at. So then I went to the art school here in Norwich, did my degree, graphic design, and then I spent about 12 years working for Archant, was. Okay. Yeah, not anymore. But and now I work in marketing. But all during that time, I've always kind of kept up a little sort of side hustle of just doing my own stuff, really. A lot of it just for my own amusement, really, because you're not always going to be doing work that you're that passionate about necessarily. So an easy artistic muse for me has always been Norwich City, to be honest.
And it's weird, because I was going to say a second ago that Norwich is, you must have a field day with it, Ben, because ultimately bright yellow, green, a canary, a castle, and a lion.
It is unique in terms of a colour scheme, and there's a lot of city history to play with.
Yeah, agrees. I don't think there's that many. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great club crests in the country and history behind those, is for sure. But I mean, I think we must be the only team that plays in canary yellow, right? Other than Hitchin Town, is that right, Jess?
Well, there's there's a few teams that do play in yellow, isn't there? But as you say, I think there's a certain type of yellow and green. You're struggling beyond Hitchin domestically, aren't you? I think the badge. The reason I've always liked the badge is because there's no initials, there's no letters, there's no club nickname, there's nothing there apart from the canary, the lion, and the castle.
Yeah.
I think that's synonymous. Is that the right word to use?
Synonymous.
Yeah, it's a classic, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, and I think people see that and they think Norwich straight away. So when we had the redesign of the badge a few years ago, I was so pleased, because when they sort of first announced it, I thought, SHIT, they're going to really muck this up. Norwich, and they're just bound to like go with a circular logo with a canary that looks a little bit drunk coming out from the diagonal. And
everyone rips off Arsenal's badge now, don't they? You see a lot of copies of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of thought, are they going to go down that route and have like a lot of clubs? If you look at Stevenage's, for example.
They
have the club name on the circular bit on the outside. I thought, are they going to do that? And then as soon as I saw the badge, I thought, thank God.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's just the same. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to do evolution, not revolution, or something like that. It's just gonna. As similar as it is to the old badge, it still caused quite a lot of grumbles, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of touched on that question now. So, I mean, obviously, in recent years, other clubs around the world, other country have sort of changed their club badge. What did you actually think from a graphic design perspective? I mean, obviously, I don't know if you were involved in it, but if there's anything you would have done differently to it, or.
I mean, when at the time there was somebody within our Along-Come Norwich group, not me, but they were privy to some of the rejected alternative designs, which apparently were I shan't swear, but yeah, we're pretty bad and quite a departure from what we've already got. So I think from what they said, we definitely got the best of what they come up with. And someone at the club said, "Yeah, you've got to go evolution, not revolution here. You've got to, you can't just do something completely wild and different." I wish I'd seen them, but yeah, they've probably all been burnt now and destroyed. So.
But I mean, would you have done anything differently? So the original was, I know not the way back original, but the one was a competition winner, and
yes, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy when you think of what was that, early 70s, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah, I think so.
And I mean, if you look at it now, and I look at it now, and I'm like, the lion looks like Bart Simpson's ghost.
The line was an odd one on that.
A little bit. I mean, the person did well. I mean, ultimately, it stayed with the club for God knows how many years and was on so much merchandise everywhere. But I mean, what would you have done differently if you'd have done anything differently?
I think it's funny actually, because at the time you kind of pore over it and every little detail, but now, so a few years down the line, and you just sort of see it and think, oh yeah, that's the Norwich badge, and you don't really think about the old one that much anymore. Maybe some little. I think this is going to be really niche, and 99% of people aren't going to notice. But maybe I think personally that because they moved the ball into the middle.
Yeah,
there was a bit of an obsession with doing that. I don't really know why, but I think that meant that the tail on the Canaries a little bit short, and I think it looks a bit top heavy, and like he might topple off, and that it looks a bit more like a sparrow than a canary. But like I say, 99% fans aren't really going to notice that.
But the thing is, I sort of work loosely in design. My sort of my job is like UX design, so I have some kind of dabbling with design. So what you said there was spot on. Like, they moved to Canary, and I like these little tangent conversations. That's what gets Beyond the Barclay going. They moved it centralized, so everything was aligned. If they had it in if you were looking at this in a design system, software system, for those who are uninitiated, it would everything in that square, as it were, as a badge, would be in a perfect alignment.
Yes.
So what has happened is they've moved the Canary, centralized it more. But like you said, what I feel like it, when I first looked at it, I was like, it looks like the Canary's kind of, I guess, maybe put on a little bit of weight.
He's beefed up a bit, isn't he?
And you know, the tail isn't as long, but as you said, what they've said is that it's supposed to look like the Canary's about to fly.
Yes, that's true. Yes,
I don't know if that was intentional.
Well, something they said afterwards.
Yeah. When we said it looks more like a sparrow, and I hadn't noticed that, Ben, until you said that. Now I'm like, thanks. I can't unsee a sparrow.
That's the new club nickname. I think that when the club were quite clever when they brought it out there, because they put that little presentation together, didn't they, to say, look, even just around Carrow Road, the old badge looks different on like so many different places. You like had the badge above the players' entrance, and like on the carpets, and then merchandise. It was, it was quite funny when you saw it like that. Oh, actually, it's been reproduced differently so many times over the years because we haven't got a standardized version. So it just makes sense. That's why you've got to do it. So.
Yeah, the lion as well always had a really surprised look on his face on the other one. It's like, if that lion ever spoke, that's how I'd think it would speak.
Yeah,
that's your impression for everything.
True. Yeah, true, to be fair.
But the lion looks actually like a lion now.
Yeah.
I need to shout out to Along Come Norwich's Nick Hayhoe, who really misses the old lion. He's never got over it, I don't
think. Has he said that it's kept him up at night?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
It's just got like a drawing of this lion's face all over his bedroom. Anyway, Jez, it's you next.
Yeah, you're keeping the pace today. So, question. I'm not going to say what question it is because we've kind of jumped forward a bit, haven't we? So, what would you tell your younger designer self to do differently?
Do something other than design if you want to earn a lot of money. I think I'd say.
If you just want to actually breathe and exist and don't. It's my own.
It's a difficult one. I think a younger supporter, when I was talking about that first season, the season after my first season, tell my younger supporter self to make the most of the 92-93 season. It's not going to be like that every year, which I think back then I just assumed it would be. Finishing third in the Premier League.
Exactly a highlight, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And there's been a lot of other ones since, to be fair. But yeah, I think just because when you first start supporting a team and when things are going well, you think, oh, it's just going to always be like this.
You lie to yourself.
Yeah. And the first season I was supporting, we got to an FA Cup semi-final. Never been close since. So yeah. There you go. But yeah, that's what I tell a younger version of myself.
Do you have anyone in your career who you've looked up to as a mentor and perhaps has guided you through, should I say, and given you sort of some inspiration?
Yeah, I grew up with things like the Beano and the Dandy. It was comics that were my first love. Yeah. Those have always given me inspiration. And then computer games and stuff when I was younger.
What computer games out of interest?
I was sort of Sega Mega Drive era. And then latterly, PlayStation and Xbox. But I think those early games always had a big influence on me. And again, my love of design and graphics and 2D design. Yeah, I loved all that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I remember the days of the. Oh God, I sound so old then. I just caught myself
about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Like yeah, but like it was all bright, vibrant kind of colors, and early PlayStation, like Mega Drive 2 games, all very bright, and PlayStation 1 games and things like that. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is quite a deep question, but do you think that sort of that brightness that Norwich has kind of drawn you to it as well?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say I've always been interested in sort of design for communication, which is what graphic design is really, I guess. And yeah, particularly sort of 2D, bright colours, like a lot of sort of street art and stuff like that as well. So yeah, Norwich's colours have certainly help.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just if we talk about like Norwich City's sort of like design outputs, so they've put a lot of effort into different design outputs recently, and sort of a lot of it's kind of run across social media and branding on the stadium as well.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on it, and what do you think they've really done well?
I like that they still do sort of different program covers for each game, and when they first started doing that was quite innovative. I mean, I think most clubs do it now, but back then it was still just like, I'll just stick a player on the front cover kind of thing. Yeah. But then they started, especially like featuring a lot of local artists and stuff. And I did just blow my own trumpet. I did do some Norwich City program covers a few seasons ago.
Come on, spill the beans.
That was the Premier League season, actually, under the first one under Daniel Farker. Right. That was Dan Brigham. Have you spoken to him on here yet? Or?
No, we need to.
No, he was the program editor at the time.
Oh, amazing!
And like a lot of this stuff, particularly to do with Norwich City, it just falls into my lap. Someone just seems to come along and say, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." He got in contact with me and said they were doing this thing where they had a different artist doing each home game. But
I think I remember that
season they were kind of wanted to do it as a series, do the whole season with one person. And would I be interested? And I was like, yeah. And I'd been doing these things putting these things out on Twitter, a bit like sort of old Panini stickers, where I'd been putting just a quite simple Photoshop job where I'd been putting current players in old kits.
Yeah.
And he loved that idea, and he was like, yeah, that's what we want to do. And I was like, okay. So the programs for that season were a series of, I remember the first one, the Newcastle home game, was Maurice Leitner in a Asics kit, I think.
Jamal Lewis in a Foster's Lager one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was one. I can't remember them all now. Might have had what's his name? I can't remember what we had Buendia in. Might have been a Foster's Lager kit. But yeah, basically that was it. It was basically a Photoshop job, so it wasn't even like massively artistic. It was like, take this player, stick him in a new kit. And I did work collaboratively with the club designer doing that as well, and he was a great lad.
I mean, I think a lot of it, a lot of design. I mean, I don't know too much about graphic design, but a lot of the output a lot of it comes from having to really think about it. It's the ideation stage, which I think I find the most interesting and fun. where you're kind of just pulling all of these ideas together. Like me and Jez have had some crazy chats about what we want to do with the podcast, where we want to go with, who we want to get on and why.
Yeah.
And, I think then, I wouldn't put yourself down and say, oh, it's not really design, because I think a lot of it is like, it's thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it's that idea, yeah. And thinking, creative thinking.
drawing on the past. I mean, one of the things that I think is really what they've done really well is standardized a sort of font for the
that makes sense. Yeah.
So if for those of you who aren't familiar with the change of font that the club's opted for, they've basically is it Weave, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah. Norwich Weave.
So the Weave is supposed to represent the Dutch weavers who came to Norwich and settled in the, I think, 17th century. And there's loads of old school, like, historical houses down by Pottergate in that area that are all kind of old weavers' houses. So it's just those little things that, like, I'm just thinking about now and getting little goosebumps, because I just think it's a really nice thing that the club actually goes, well, what about the history of the city as a place?
Yeah.
How can we bring this heritage into the club? I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good idea. I really like. Did you see the program cover for the Preston game as well? That was really nice. I don't know. That was like a sort of, this might be going back too far. 1990 sort of Germany away kit, the green kit they wore against England. It looked like that. Really nice. But I don't know who did it, and I don't know if it's in house or whether they're getting outside designers to do them. But that was I really like that one.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, that's something I'd never really considered before, that they outsourced the designs for the program. I would have thought that would have all been done in house. Talk to us a little bit about that process then, and how how you got. I think you might have loosely mentioned it earlier, but from start to finish, how did that process happen, if you're able to say?
With the programs, or well, I can say it was just kind of contact out of the blue from Dan, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've seen this work you've been putting on Twitter, and this idea of sort of modern players in retro kits in a sort of." I mean, the original designs, I say, look like sort of Panini, the old school Panini stickers, and he said, so that was the concept. And I think each week they chose the player, thinking about it. And they were like, okay, this week we want to feature whoever, Pookie back then, or Wendy or whatever. And then I kind of went into my bank of images of old kits. I thought, okay, which one can I match with who? Which one can I make look the best? And then the designer at the club back then, it was a lad called T Hipkiss, he was called. I don't think he's there anymore, but he would then kind of like polish it up and put all the text on and everything and make it look presentable. But yeah, that was great. I mean, I remember going to that first home game of that season, the Newcastle game, and getting to the program seller and thinking, oh bloody hell, there's another little thing I didn't think I'd ever see, something I designed on the front cover of Norwich City program. That was a good little buzz.
So I was going to say it must be quite a heartwarming or like a good feeling to see something you've produced. Like, people look at it, because I always look at this stuff when I look at design. It's kind of like sort of why I asked you to come on the episode. I was like, I really like the stuff that you've done. We'll come on to that a bit later on, but I love seeing like a really well thought out design for a club. I think it just gives it. I don't know. I really appreciate it. Basically.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice that they think about it.
Good. Morgan, is it you or is it me?
It's you, 6.
Ooh, 6. If you could choose to make a classic over the top, in inverted comma fingers, Norwich third shirt, sorry, what colours would you choose and why?
It's hard to think of any colours I haven't used now. It's getting to that kind of point, isn't it? I think a caveat here should be that I think barely any team really needs a third kit, especially Norwich City. I mean, come on. Even with Oxford in the league, that's 3 teams in yellow. So there's only 3 times we really need an away kit. But I get why they do it. It's a commercial thing. And I do quite like, actually, how the third kit for a lot of clubs now has kind of become like the banter kit, basically.
Yeah.
You have a sort of sensible first away kit, and then the third one is just madness. And we have had some quite weird ones in recent years. I quite like the ones with pink. I like that one, that sort of Pookie era with the black and the sort of neon pink.
Oh yeah, I've got that shirt. It's a lovely.
I like that one. Yeah. I quite like the purple ones. We've had a few purple ones here and there. It wasn't quite so the sort of cloud pink one a couple of years ago. I wasn't so keen on that one.
I think. Oh yes, I remember the one. Yeah. It was it looked like one of those Zap toffee lollies. Do you remember those?
Yeah, it was sort of pink and sort of powder blue. Yeah,
that's what it kind of reminded me of a bit.
It looked like it had been washed with a red sock, didn't it? Basically. I know a lot of people in our group. The kit we're all yearning for is a kind of. I mean, I love actually the ones that are basically the simple, like a white version of the home kit. I always love, particularly white and green. There's the away kit of the Asics one, which was just white with the green stripes over the shoulder. I'd love to see kind of a revival of that one, and a lot of clubs do kind of. I mean, like Arsenal have done that quite a bit, gone back to sort of retro away kits and things. So it'd be nice to see us do a bit of that, visit some old kits with a sort of updated version of a classic away kit, maybe.
I think it's helped with Arsenal, hasn't it? The fact that they weren't with Adidas for years, they were with Adidas, and now they're back with them.
They did the bruised banana, didn't they? Yeah.
Yes, that's it. And I mean, that was both a horrific kit, but at the same time, graphic.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and people forget like that. 92, 93 Norwich kit, the Tipex and Birdshit or whatever people called it, egg and cress. Yeah. I mean, people hated that when it first came out. It was like, this is awful, but everyone loves it now. It's just like
I mean, we've said this earlier on in some of our pods that it's probably in the top 10. I think best home shirts of all time. It has to be, right?
Yeah, and even like non-Norwich fans from that era remember that kit kind of.
Well, I mean, it was Norwich went on to be successful in Europe up to a point in that shirt. So it's pretty recognisable. Jez, what colours would you choose?
Oh, that's a question. I mean, I quite like. I say this all the time, so I feel like I'm banging the same drum every time I say this. But do you remember the navy blue Coleman's kit we had with the? Oh, that's one thing we forgot to mention to Cootie, wasn't it earlier? Cootie, like we know him now, and he's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
I've got one. I've got a match worn shirt of his.
Bought
off eBay, and I completely forgot to mention it to him. But anyway, so something along those lines where we've got the fluorescent lines on the arms and under the,
I know the one. Yeah,
I would love to see a remake of that, and I'd be first in line to buy it.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Yeah.
They went a bit safe this year, didn't they? I think maybe we got a bit bored of doing zany third. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When that stone third shirt came out, I was like, what? But the longer the season's gone on, the more I've gone. You know what? I regret buying the second shirt, and I wish I'd have got the third one instead.
Well, that's the thing as well, because they don't bring one out at the same time, do they? So you get the away one, and then they bring out a really nice third kit. And
They're stumped. So I'm not paying another £70 for a shirt.
I do like that sort of the third one, the cream one. Although it was Luton away, wasn't it, where everyone was just covered in mud, and it was just a brown kit by the end of it.
That was actually.
I said, as you generally are at Kenilworth Road.
Even the fans were coming.
Jez is a secret second team fan of Luton. Anyway.
I mean, I went to university there, and obviously when you do that, you have an affinity to the team that you.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I think for me, I'd probably choose, because I'm just going to be a disruptor, as it were. I'd just choose something like brown with neon pink. Why not?
Yeah.
Just something so gross that no one's ever going to buy it, and then it becomes a classic in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, pink.
Please, marketing at Norwich, don't listen to me. If you've got any sense, don't listen to me. Okay, so now moving on to something a bit more personal with yourself and your design. I mean, you've sort of touched on what you've done with the club and the program and stuff. I think you've done some excellent collaboration with a long-come Norwich fan group and on the Stall City. You've done on the Stall City as well.
Yes, so, I did their logo for them a long time ago. Bless them.
Yeah. So tell us more about both of those things, how they came about, and I guess what you think it means to the Norwich community. Thank you.
Along Come Norwich was, I guess, like at least 10 years ago now, probably. In those good old days on Twitter before it kind of became a hellhole, I was putting.
We can't say that on here because we have to advertise. So it's not that bad.
I was just doing some of these sort of Norwich City designs and just sticking them on Twitter, just for somewhere to put them really. Sticking the NCFC hashtag on there, see if anyone liked them, and it was Fionn Thomas from When Saturday Comes magazine, who is also a big Norwich fan and prolific ground hopper as well. She was the first person on Twitter back then when I barely had any followers or whatever to say, hey, this guy's doing some cool work. So it's all her fault really. She's the one who who's made everything that's happened subsequently happen. And from there, John Punt, who just started up Along Come Norwich with Andrew Lawn, got in contact over Twitter and said, hey, do you want to? We need a logo and we need some stuff. Will you do it for free? And I was like, yeah, of course I will. Yeah. And originally the sort of Along Come Norwich kind of mission was mainly writing. It was John and Andy wanted to get there, do some good quality writing about Norwich City and get it out there, and they sort of self-published. And they also had at the time, I suppose that was probably might have been Alex Neil's last season. There was as there often is at Norwich, it kind of goes around in circles. There was a discussion about the atmosphere at Carrow Road being pretty crap at the time, and that was kind of one of their main campaigns. Really, it was like we want to do stuff to try and improve the atmosphere. And they were fans of. I think our WhatsApp group is actually called Along Come Norwich Hipster Nerds, which just kind of sum everybody up. Everyone's kind of got an interest in sort of fan culture in Europe and stuff, and a lot of particularly people like Fionn have actually been there and witnessed it and stuff. So there was a desire to try and see what we could bring in terms of colour and atmosphere to try and generate a bit more noise at Carrow Road at the time. And then not long after Daniel Farker arrived and and it all took off.
Yeah, I mean that was I suppose that was almost like a perfect storm.
It really was. Yeah.
Of kind of like I didn't realize that Along Come Norwich and yourself had kind of were thinking about this before. So for any listeners out there, like it was like you said, Ben just said, like it was in relation to kind of improving the sort of ground atmosphere at Carrow Road.
Yeah,
and Daniel Farker came along, obviously from Borussia Dortmund second, and there was a whole thing with the yellow wall at Dortmund.
Yeah,
was that intentional, or was that purely by coincidence that Farker came and he was from Dortmund?
It was funny. Yeah, there was a lot of. I think it's, I suppose, like on the pitch as well. At times, there's just a sort of the right people at the right place at the right time kind of thing. All kind of comes together, and I think it's kind of easy to forget now because Norwich ever since have had a squad full of players from across the world, really, but. Having our first non-British manager was so exciting back then and so different. And I think people were just willing to fall in love with old Daniel, regardless. And because he was a bit of an oddball, wasn't he? He kind of looked a bit different. He doesn't sound like you expect him to sound like. And I thought everyone did, but again, that just kind of made him sort of unique, really. And everyone just kind of fell in love with him before a ball had been kicked. We were. So the group was sort of saying, okay, well. I think at that point they'd had some discussions with the club, and they were. That was when Ben Kensall was at the club, and he was great. Bless him. He was really open to sort of fan engagement and what. He could see the atmosphere wasn't great at the ground, and he was really interested in our ideas basically for what could be done. And we were like, okay, well we're going to have to be kind of self-funding. So John said, okay, well let's stick out a T-shirt, or whatever, make some money, and then all the profits for that we can put into stuff like making banners and flags or whatever for fans to have it before kickoff. And that first T-shirt was the Daniel Farker one, just the Daniel Farker holding the beer mug, and it just went crazy. Like we must have done like 3 print runs on that T-shirt. Did
you design that?
I did, yeah.
Oh wow, no way.
That was It was really funny because I mean, later that season, someone, it might have even been one of those fan thing that the supporters association do at the start of the season at Carrow Road, like a Q&A thing, and Daniel was there, sort of signing autographs and sort of being introduced to the fans, and he signed one of those T-shirts that I'd just done, and he said, Why does everybody think? Apparently, he said, "Why does everybody think I love beer?" Because he doesn't drink beer. He's a wine connoisseur, of course.
Right.
But yeah, he didn't quite get it. But we were just like, "Oh well, he's German. He must like he must like beer, surely."
A frothy Stein.
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool, and I like being in the supermarket and stuff and seeing someone in the T-shirt you designed and stuff. That was another one of those little thrills.
Yeah, for sure. I really loved the design of that initial.
Yeah, and we stuck it on everything. We made it into stickers and flags and all sorts. And yeah, I always think of that when I think of Daniel.
Yeah. Did you also design the one that's like got the eagle with the
Oh yes, yeah, I did that one as well. Yeah,
I bought that for a friend.
We really went all in on all the German. we milked it for all it was worth.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, so do you still do? Are you still working with ACN, or are you sort
Yeah, we're still a kind of vague collective of people. In terms of the website and stuff, there's a sort of rotating editorship of whoever can be bothered to do it. So that's changed again recently. So you might see a little spike in content again.
Yeah.
On the website and stuff. And there are still people out there with a will to do thinking about flags again and things. And because like last season, I think you get like occasionally people say, "Oh, you only do flags when you're winning or whatever." And what happened to the flags and all this? And like last season, there were discussions, and one of the games we were thinking about doing it was Watford at home, and that ended up being the game where half the ground booed David Wagner's substitutions, and there just wasn't really a point last season where you thought anybody was in a mood for waving flags around before kickoff. There was such a sort of disconnect last season, and I just think it just would have fallen so flat last year. I don't think anyone was really up for it.
How do you think the club have dealt with that? Because I agree, by the way. I think there was a massive disconnect last season between the club and the fan base. How do you think that's improved, or if you do think it's improved? Because I do. Why do you think that's happened?
I think the safe standing seats has been really interesting. I mean, that's been something that people have been calling for a long time. I've stood in there a few times. I tend to kind of meander around the ground, but that was I think that's helped. I like the drum. I know some people don't. Some people are pro drum. Some people are anti drum. I like it. I think it helps generate atmosphere. Something like the Derby game quite recently, I was sitting quite close to the drum, and it really helps. It keeps everyone in time, gets everyone going at the start of the game. I like it. I think that's been a good addition. What about you? Are you pro drum or anti drum?
We've had the drum's not dead, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I sit far enough away from it not to affect me. So
that is the thing. Yeah.
I think if I was to sit next to no, even that. You're right. I think it creates an atmosphere. I've been to games in Germany, right, where, and I'm referring to Bochum here, where you've got some guy at the front with a megaphone doing the old sort of German chant. Well, German obviously because they're in Germany, but the chanting at the front, and rousing up the crowd of 300 or 400 in front of him. Even in the yellow wall, you haven't got that sort of central guy because you don't need it. But I guess the point I'm going to make is the point you do get these sort of atmosphere generators in Europe, and I think you don't see so much the megaphone in the UK or at least England.
No, you don't, do you?
But the drum, I think, does make a difference, and I think it's I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think we're just very, very, very British and quite reserved with things.
Yeah.
So maybe that has an impact. I mean, we sort of touched on the stall as well. How did you come? So on the stall for listeners is a memorabilia shop that started on Norwich Market, and has moved into Norwich City, the Forum in Norwich. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about your work with them, and because I think it's fantastic. I think everything that they've done is a really cool story.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're such great people. And we made one of the flags we made in those early Daniel Farker days was that image of him with the beer stein on a German flag. And I think Andy or Sharon had got in contact and said, because at the time they were going to every away game, they still might do, I don't know. And they said, and they were going to, I think, did we do a pre-season in like Florida or something weird that year?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they actually they went out Tampa Bay, wasn't it? Yeah, they went out there and followed the team all the way to Florida, and they said, "Can we take the flag with us?" And we were like, "Yeah, you can have it." So they went out there and got pictures of the team training in Florida and with them and this flag, and then they took it all around the country with them as well, which was great. So you kept seeing it in away ends popping up and thinking, "Oh, there's the Bowles family."
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great. They're really great people. And I love Understore City. It's just, it's a great thing, and I've bought plenty of stuff in there from them, plenty of retro kits and stuff.
Yeah, you've got to be quick. And
that's the only thing.
Yeah, I mean, by the time this pod goes out, there is a memorabilia event that's running at the end of the 23rd of March, I think, that on the store we're involved with. By the time this pod goes out, it will be over. But obviously, I think Andy, when I spoke to Andy in the store, he was very keen to kind of promote what they're doing with the memorabilia side of things. Obviously, I think they do it's for charitable charity and stuff. So I think it's really good. And he was very keen to point out that it's a memorabilia store, not the official club shop.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about. And so you designed the
little logo, which they've kept, bless them, because it was designed to look like one of the the market store roofs, but they've got so big now they're not even in the market anymore. But they've kept they've kept the logo.
It's a really good logo, and again, I think I don't know if you did that much research into it, but I guess it's a bit of a doff for the cap to the market that's been there for so many years. I mean, I remember eating chips off the market when I was a kid, and I remember those. Was it probably shouldn't have been under there because it was probably made of what's it called? That's that sheeting that you can't have anymore.
Asbestos.
Yeah. It was so shit, and you'd had all the water running down the slabs on the slope, and it was all like green with so I remember it well in the plastic sheeting and like seagulls trying to peck your eyes out.
It looked completely different, didn't it, to what it does now?
Yeah, for sure. And I really like the work you've done with those guys. So just moving on to the official club, the Norwich City itself. You've obviously done programs. Have you done anything else, like any murals, or if you can tell us about these?
The most recent thing, and again another thing where you think, oh, I can't believe I got to do that, was the mural in the Lion and Castle bar. Don't know if you've seen that.
Is it the one with all the players?
Yes, that one. That's the one.
Wow, was that you?
That was me as well. Everyone is going to be listening to this thinking, "That's that guy again." Yeah, it was me.
Again, tell us more about it.
That came about. Me and John Punt had been kind of banging the drum for a mural for quite a while, actually, and it was a bit annoying because we started saying it was a great idea when not many clubs had done it, but now loads of clubs have done it, and you see either in their grounds or in the sort of space around their grounds, and you see it at like Liverpool, Everton,
Rashford,
they've all got it. And we were saying, we as a group at Lunch Norwich had been looking for some space around, any businesses near to Carrow Road, but didn't really get anywhere with anyone with a blank wall or anything. But no one was willing to give up any space. But then the club got, we managed to persuade the club, and then when they decided to redevelop the bar, create the Lion and Castle, they got in touch, and we were like, okay. So I mean, to be honest, the first I kind of found out about it was that via John was that they'd said yes. So can you do a design? I was like, okay. And I knew of a sort of localish sort of. He's done some work in Norwich. I think he's from East London originally. This graffiti artist called Nasha, and so I only knew about him because I'd seen his work around Norwich.
Okay.
And we got in contact with him via Instagram or something and said, would you, if we come up with this design, would you come and implement it? Because, you know, my brief was to kind of come up with the concept, but I was never going to. I've never done a mural. I was never going to go and get the spray paints out and implement it myself. So we needed someone to actually do it. And he said, and he's a great guy. Yeah, he's really good. His work's really good, and he's done stuff for other football clubs as well. So he was happy to come on board.
How long did it sort of take?
It took. Anything like this, you obviously have to get these things signed off. So there was a bit of backwards and forwards of. There might have been more. I think who was on there who got taken off. I think Tim Close's goal against Ipswich with a kind of "oh no, how awful" quote was on there originally, and then I think the club were like, "oh no, can we take that off? We don't want to be like that." So a few people didn't make it, but the concept was, well, we know it's going to be at the Barclay, so let's celebrate iconic moments that have happened at the Barclay, and it wasn't necessarily what's the best goal or what's the most famous goal. We wanted to do like a collection of stuff, so there's guns on there with a sort of reference to. I don't know if you remember this, when Brian Gunn used to come out, and when he was playing in front of the Barclay, he'd do this like run up towards the crossbar, and an attempt to headbutt the crossbar, and just miss it. Yeah, it's really funny. So we wanted to sort of reference that, and there's a few other moments on there. That Huckabee goal he scored against Birmingham, I mean, that was a kind of nothing match in a season where we finished mid-table, but it was such a great goal, and I thought, you got to get Huckabee on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think some of the iconic. It's like I asked this question jokingly a few pods ago about what tattoo would you get of a famous Norwich image, and I always think of like ones that pop into my head as Nathan Redmond leaping up into the air, going with a really big grin on his face. That one, the one that's actually in the Lion Castle now, the Pookie face.
Yes,
I always think of that. I always think of that image when I think of him.
Yeah,
but even like you said, even if it isn't like an amazing season, there are just sometimes people just capture those images, like that Tim Close smacking the corner flag after scoring the header. You know, those images they just stay on your mind, and I love the work that you and the team put into the Lion and Castle with the mural. I think it's a really really cool touch. Really brings the whole the vibe together.
Yeah, and we kind of put it out to sort of all of us and various sort of friends as well, and said, look, just give us a list of your favourite Barclay moments or whatever. And again, it doesn't have to be the best goal, the best player, just things that you think of. And we kind of came up with a sort of top 10 or whatever that space would allow for. Yeah. I mean, tried not to make them all goals against Ipswich, but there are a couple on there.
Yeah, like the Bradley Johnson screamer, and you could go on.
Yeah.
But it sort of nicely segues into the next question then. If you could put a mural on any iconic Norwich City building with NCFC designs, which one would they be and why? Bear in mind, just for the audience at home, these murals come off after a day, so there's no damage done to the.
Okay, cool. So I could do it on the cathedral or something and not get in trouble. Maybe Anglia Square. There's an opportunity there if they're actually going to knock it down. Just build it with a massive Norwich City mural on there.
Yeah, I think that's where they should build the new ground if they ever did. I mean, it'll probably take about as long as to get.
The new arena. Just plonk it on top of Anglia Square.
Yeah, well, it needs something to brighten itself up a little bit. I would probably go for it's got to be the Castle Keep, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's a nice canvas. Yeah, that's a nice.
It's flat and square, and it. Yeah. I mean, I remember. I mean, going back to the badge chat that we had originally. When that was released, they shined an image of it on the
yes, they did, didn't they? Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that sort of it. When I was looking up like ideas for questions earlier, I saw that image and I was like, I'll ask that question. See what he comes up with. So you've chosen Anglia Square as your iconic Norwich landmark.
Yeah, there you go. New Anglia Square, whatever they put there.
Good work, Ben. Good work. Maybe
we'll build it with a blank face on it, so we can put a mural on it.
Yeah, maybe the mural doesn't come off after a day if you're going to put it on Anglia Square.
Yeah, it needs. Yeah,
I'll never be able to walk down there again after this podcast goes out. I guess, like, sort of wrapping up then for the main questions. What's next on your graphic design journey, and have you got any secret NCFC stuff you can tease us with?
Morgan,
yeah,
you haven't asked me what building I'd put it on.
Oh yeah,
you were absent for a second. What building would you put it on?
Sovereign House.
Where's Sovereign House again?
That's part of Anglia Square, is it? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of very Anglia Square theme, this, isn't it? But it's the old HMSO building.
Oh yeah.
The office building that's attached to it. It's massive, and if anyone's ever had the gumption to have a look and see what's inside it, having it with it being derelict for 20 years, there's a really good video on YouTube about it.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, it's what a canvas that building is, and imagine you could literally have either side of it like a full scale Carrow Road image, I suppose, either side of the building, looking at it from the perspective of the stand that you're sitting in.
Yeah. It's brutalist classic. Yeah,
I haven't. I know what you mean, but I just cast that whole area as Anglia Square. Yeah,
I should have said the UEA. That needs glamming up a bit. Yeah, just paint the UEA green and yellow.
Just everywhere.
Yeah,
I love it. Go on then, Jez. You asked number 10.
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, back to the questions, we are at the last question before the famous random question of the week. So what's next for your graphic design journey, and any secret NCFC stuff that you can tease us with?
I'm trying to think. There's nothing in the pipeline at the moment. I think. There are discussions, ongoing about, let's get the flags back, let's do some new ones, because all the other ones kind of got, water damaged and so let's do some new ones. But yeah, other than that, not a lot really. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we need some suggestions for a new massive surfer flag or something. One of the ones that goes over everyone's heads,
Oh yeah. I know the ones
which are surprisingly expensive to to get produced, and
really heavy, aren't they?
They take a whole morning of. I went and volunteered a few times when they. What was the last one before Ipswich? Actually, at home last season. Yeah, and you have to get there hours in advance because they're just so heavy, and then you roll the thing out and think, oh, hang on, we've got it upside down. You have to turn it around again. So yeah, it takes a small army of dedicated volunteers.
Yeah, definitely. I saw on social media earlier this week that I think it was Portsmouth, but some gran had literally cut a square out because she was so annoyed that she couldn't see the goals. So literally, and all you see is this massive banner on the and then there's this little square pokey hole where she's looking out like a bird watching or something, right?
But yeah, I can't tease you with anything.
Never mind.
Hugely interesting in the pipeline, but we'll do our best.
Yeah.
Question of the week.
Is that time? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. More enthusiasm from you, Jez, please.
Oh. Yes, it's time for the random question of the week.
Yes. Well, random question of the week. It's right. Never gets old, does it? Ever?
No, never.
Anyway, Ben, this is now the time you get a random question thrown at you. It might be Norwich City related, or it might not be. So, okay. So you're in a French vineyard. It's sort of late spring. You're in shorts and a vest, enjoying yourself with a glass of French wine, and you've got a canvas in front of you, and you've got paints. And you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, this is the life." What Norwich City player, past, present, would you have with you as your fellow paintee, if you will?
Can I have someone as a model so I can be paint them.
This is a family show, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they kit on or off? No.
No, I think kit fully on.
Cool. Yeah, of course you can do whatever you want.
They're not a player, not a Norwich player, but I think it would be dear old Daniel Farker, because I think I had a very special relationship with Daniel. I never got to meet him, but he was definitely my artistic muse for a number of years. I've really enjoyed doing artwork of Daniel Farker. He just had some great looks, some great facial expressions, the hair, the beard, the big Parker. He was fantastic, yeah. And I never quite get the same joy from drawing Dean Smith or David Wagner. David Wagner was a little bit better, but yeah, and still working on Hoff.
Yeah, I think Fark is an excellent choice. Like he's just like I mean I've doodled caricatures before in the past for my friends. They'll say the same. He would be so good to draw, and with Hoff as well. Like he's got a look of a sort of like Bond villain.
Yeah, that's the first time I saw him. I thought that. Yeah,
I was like, this is too good.
Yeah.
If you're into drawing like caricatures, those two as coaches they're just so much. They were so much fun to draw. Do you like David Squires?
Yes. Yeah. Do you like his stuff? Yeah.
Do you know who that is, Jez?
I've heard the name. I don't know necessarily what he's related to Norwich, right?
No, he's a Guardian. He's the Guardian football drawer.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's really good. Draws random.
He does very good. Very good. Jurgen Klopp he used to do. And, yeah.
Yeah, he's obsessed with like Jose Mourinho. So a bit like Daniel Farker and you, Ben.
Yes, and if this canvas has been painted on in a French vineyard, I think Daniel would enjoy that. From what I've heard, he likes his red wine.
Yeah, and what a note to end on.
Brilliant.
Jez?
I'd probably go with Neil Adams.
Good on you.
I've always thought he'd be quite nice to draw.
Yeah, he's got big eyes.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think he's always struck me as such a nice bloke, and you know what he's done for the club as well. And I think it'd be good to have him sort of centrally in the photo, and then all of his different job roles that he's done and people that he's helped. A bit like during COVID where you had all like the nurse murals and stuff. That, but it'd be like Neil Adams with all the people that he's helped in his career, and it must be getting close to 30 years that bloke's been involved with Norwich, if not more.
Clap for Neil Adams,
yeah.
Unbelievable. Right, so without further ado, we better sign off. And what was that sound, Morgan? Is that your microwave done?
No, that's just I get a notification on my laptop.
Oh, good. Ben, thank you so much. It's been
thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's been really funny actually. So I've really enjoyed hearing more about your designs in the programs and various other projects. So thank you so much. It's been really enlightening.
Whenever you see these random designs, you think, who's done that? It was me.
That's great.
How did you get to do that? I don't know.
Really? Is there anyone you want to just do a shout out to before we close off?
I'll give a shout out to all my Long Come Norwich pals. They know who they are.
I like that. That's very good.
We'd love to do a crossover at some point as well, a Long Come Norwich.
Yeah, definitely. There's a rich history there with all of them. So yeah, I'll put your details on.
I mean, probably one of the flags in the Lower Barclay could be the Beyond the Barclay logo.
Yeah, yeah. Sponsor a flag.
It's not that with that, really, is it? To be fair, I'm coming up with your marketing ideas here.
He's good like that, but don't let him get a bigger head.
Nice.
I won't be able to fit through that turnstile. Right. So, sorry, Ben, I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, it's all right. I finished. I was just laughing.
Good. That's what the podcast of laughs, eh? Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, I better sign off. So I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Morgan Hewitt.
Do I need to sign off?
Yeah, why not?
I've been Benjamin Stokes.
Excellent.
And not that one that plays for.
Not that one. That's why. Yeah, I use my full name now, Benjamin.
And you can follow us on all the usual social media channels and watch us now on YouTube.
Yeah, you know what? I say that every week. So I think if they haven't had it by now, Morgan, they never would have done, would they? So
you just wanted me to say it, didn't you?
Yeah, to be honest, it sounded better coming from you than it did me. So that might be the way moving forward.
Oh.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and look forward to speaking to everyone soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Perfect.
You're still there, Ben?
Nice one. Was that all right?
No, it was great. No, thank you so much. It's been really eye-opening, and I was really excited to do this episode. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, me too.
That's cool. Yeah, if you want me to, I can always pass on like social media handles or whatever for other people who might be good to interview. Like, definitely. I don't know do you know Fionn Thomas or not? From
No, but it'd be someone that we're definitely keen on speaking to. She's someone that has been recommended already by.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Say she's I think she's like deputy editor of When Saturday Comes, and
we'd
she's
really be.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barclay. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like us to cover, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the ball, City.